The Panasonic GH5 is my favorite video camera of all time. I think it's fantastic, but it's not the perfect video camera. It's going to be the right video camera for most people who have this kind of budget, who have these kinds of needs. But at the same time, some people will prefer a different camera. First of all, the things I really like about it aren't stuff that can be quantitatively measured, like autofocus speed or megapixels. It's the usability of it. It has a flip out screen, so I can turn it on and look at myself. I can work like this and do vlog style, or show the person I'm filming what's going on. I can hold it down to my waist and see it like that, or hold it over my head and tilt it up. That means so much. You can't get that on, say, a Canon 5D Mark IV. All the Sony cameras, they don't flip out to the side, which right away is kind of a deal breaker for anybody who wants to be a vlogger. It's also a proper touchscreen. And you know what? In full daylight, I could see the screen. Now, the Canon 80D is a great vlogging camera. It has way better autofocus when recording than this thing does. But you know what's missing? It's missing an electronic viewfinder. So I can hold this up and see my video while I'm recording. It's those little usability things that have always made the Panasonic GH series just like among the best video cameras ever. But the video quality, by the way, is great. First, Panasonic is now using the whole width of the sensor when you're recording 4K video. With the GH4, they cropped it down pretty significantly, and that was always a pain. That meant if you were shooting stills, you would have to zoom or change lenses when you started recording, and it meant you just couldn't shoot super wide because it wasn't using the whole sensor. It also didn't have as much image quality as it could. So now it uses the whole image sensor. Image quality has gotten better than the GH4, so it does better in low light, and in fact, everything looks a little cleaner. They also gave it 60 frames a second at 4K. It's the first major camera to do 4K at 60 frames a second. 60K is still a few years off. Even if you want to publish in 30p, recording everything in 60p gives you the opportunity to do the cinematic 2x slow-mo. Once you know this trick, you'll start to see it used in movies and TV all the time. And if you're a vlogger, that's a great way to make your B-roll just look a little bit better and up your production value without upping your work a whole lot. Yeah, the files are big. They're still way smaller than that from like a 5D Mark IV and pretty usable, and our computers haven't had any problems processing them. You can record at 180 frames per second at 1080p, allowing 7.5 times slow motion if you render at 24p, or 6 times slow motion if you render at 30p. Let's talk about the sensor size, because everybody loves the full frame sensor, and in fact we switched from the GH4 to the 70D and then back to full frame with the A7S and the A7R II, and full frame is great, but it's not great because of the sensor size. Full frame is great because of the incredible selection of lenses. Now, the Micro Four Thirds system that the GH5 uses is good. You can find great general vlogging lenses, like this 14-140 is kind of my favorite, and I'm filming Chelsea with it now. But if you want that full frame effect, that background blur, that low light capability, you can get it on the GH5, and I proved that with an earlier test. Chelsea right now is filming me with an E-M1 Mk II, but she's also using a speed booster from Metabones, a 0.64x speed booster. And that's like crop factor, but it's less than 1, so it magnifies everything, which is pretty amazing. And as you can see, it does a pretty good job of gathering low light. The sun has set, it's dark out here, but even on the E-M1, a Micro Four Thirds camera, it looks pretty good. So forget your full frame biases and give the whole speed booster Sigma 18-35 f1.8 system a chance, because if low light is what you need, it can definitely get the job done. We set C2 to the 4K digital teleconverter option, extending it to 61mm and f3.1. It was perfect for low light video, autofocusing and producing better quality than an f2.8 lens on a full-frame Sony a7S. However, still photos showed vignetting at 18mm with that combination, but not in video. We saw no vignetting with the XL speed booster in stills beyond 22mm or when using full-frame lenses. As a stills camera, the GH5 is good, but it's not great. The continuous autofocus was good enough to track flying birds. But the E-M1 Mk II from Olympus has a high res mode that moves the sensor around a little bit to create a super clean and super sharp 50 megapixel image when you're using a tripod. With a good lens, these images were better than a full frame camera without requiring any post-processing. The GH5 is a better video camera, but the E-M1 Mk II is a better stills camera. If you're mostly a still shooter, get the E-M1 Mk II or maybe even a Sony A7 Mark II instead. It's $400 cheaper and full frame. 6K photo mode takes 18 megapixel pictures at an astonishing 60 frames per second, so you can pick the perfect split second afterwards. It doesn't autofocus between frames, so it's not great for most action scenarios, but it's useful for action that doesn't move away from the focal plane. The GH5 does have a few interesting still photo modes. Post focus takes pictures all around the frame and lets you choose the focus point after the fact. I can't imagine why I'd ever use this mode though, because I'm okay with focusing. A word about the Micro Four Thirds lens system is there's a lot of options, but there's not a lot of sharp zooms. People don't ever like me saying that, but we switched from full frame lenses and we've used the Sigma 18 to 35, and those are sharp lenses. And if you compare that against the f2.8 zooms in the Micro Four Thirds world, they're just not as sharp. So we end up using the Speed Booster and the Sigma lenses, and that gets us great results. So you might have to adapt things if you really care about sharpness, but the Micro Four Thirds lenses are there for quick, easy, versatile, and lightweight options when those are higher priorities for you. I forgot my dead cat, so I'm trying to shield my mic from the wind. Let's talk about autofocus. Autofocus while recording is not great, but autofocus while recording with the GH4 was not great. Autofocus with any Sony, maybe it's a little bit better, but it's still not great. None of those pass the question, is it good enough for us anyway? So we don't use continuous autofocus on any of those cameras. The only camera we've used that we trust continuous autofocus for is the Canon 80D or the 70D or the 5D Mark IV, but one of the Canon dual pixel autofocus cameras. The problem is none of those have 4K, at least not in a way we can use, because the 5D Mark IV's file size thing. So we just don't use continuous autofocus. First thing I did was turn it off, and we don't rely on that, and neither do Hollywood filmmakers. Okay, wait, here's the real reason people have problems with the autofocus. They're on YouTube, and so they're filming themselves. We always have somebody else filming us, and that's why we didn't really appreciate the importance of the electronic autofocus. People have this workflow where they walk out in front of the camera and just let the camera focus where it needs to and hope everything goes well. We used to do that, and we realized it fails a lot, which is why we started using a cameraman all the time. But if you're in that solo workflow, you can make the GH5 work. First, you turn off electronic continuous autofocus because it never works very well, right? So set a small single autofocus point, and then once you get yourself in front of the camera, I'm holding it at arm's length, just touch the screen to focus on your eye and press set, and it should be okay. But wait, what if you can't reach the screen? What if it's farther away than arm's length? You can use the Wi-Fi app. It's free for your phone, connect to the Wi-Fi network on your GH5, and then you just touch to focus, and you know, it seems to work okay. And I know that's not ideal, that's not the workflow that you're used to, but if you want all the awesome features of the GH5, this at least lets you get it done. I know the focus point is changing. I'm doing it deliberately for my phone here. And an old trick for helping keep focus is just use a higher f-stop number. Shoot it at f8 or f11, and yeah, the background won't be nicely blurred, but at least if it does miss focus a little bit, it won't be that obvious. One big disadvantage to this setup is it doesn't show you the levels on the Wi-Fi app, so you'll have to check your levels before you walk over. But wait, there's this whole other genre of video, like the unboxing video, where people really they make some money and they can afford a good camera, but they really do need continuous autofocus because they film themselves, and they do things like hold stuff up to the camera. So this is the Yi 4K Plus action camera, and I'm getting it because it does accompany the GH5 pretty well, and then it's 4K and 60 frames per second. And we've been using GoPros, but GoPro is only 30 frames a second. So we're gonna try this one out, and I'm gonna actually unbox it. The GH5 did better than I'd seen in some other reviewers' videos, probably because I picked a single small AF point. In fact, it performed perfectly at times, but at other times, it took way too long to switch focus. If you're doing this type of video regularly, you should choose a Canon 80D or a Canon EOS M6 instead. They're the only cameras with great continuous AF while recording and a screen that flips to the top or the side. This door flips open. Oh, I busted that right off. That goes in there. Let's see if I can fix it. I can't believe I already broke it. When you can plan a focus pull, the Panasonic makes it easy to specify 2 or 3 focusing points and pull focus between those points precisely at the speed you want and exactly when you want. It's brilliant. The thumbstick is a welcome upgrade from our Sony cameras, but I preferred using the touchscreen, which works even with your eye to the viewfinder. The A6500 has this, but it worked much more reliably on the GH5. The GH5 is the first camera we've owned that records video to dual memory cards, and that's a huge relief. We've had several pro-grade memory cards fail over the years, and if you can't afford to lose an entire shoot, you should record to both cards. If they save us just once, the GH5 could pay for itself. This is the Panasonic Vlog, which costs an extra $100 and requires a ridiculous activation process, but lets you extend the dynamic range of your camera by basically grading things with an extremely low contrast. One unique thing about Vlog and the GH5 is that you can see graded footage on the camera while you're recording. So the cameraman can actually import a lookup table, a LUT, and see it. So because of this, I'm able to see the detail in the sky up there and properly expose my face. But this is only useful if you're comfortable with grading and LUTs and that type thing. And this is the same scene with the Cinelike D, which is their kind of low contrast option that you don't have to pay for. This comes built into the camera. This is the same scene with the regular default setting. And this is the Sony a7R II with S-Log turned on. And it's going to be about the same as it is for the A6300 or A6500. And I don't know how people use this for vlogging because it doesn't have a flip out screen. None of them do, so I can't see what I'm doing. If you use a field monitor like the Atomos Shogun Inferno, you'll appreciate the full HDMI port on the GH5, which is much less likely to fall out than the mini or micro HDMI port on every other competitor. The GH5 produced great, sharp wildlife results with my Canon 500mm f4 lens. Autofocusing didn't work with these big telephoto lenses because that just doesn't work great with contrast focusing, but automatic focus magnification and focus peaking made manual focus about as easy as it was going to be. I shot these handheld using lens stabilization, in-camera electronic video stabilization, and then YouTube's stabilization in post. But you know what the clincher is for me? The battery. It has this huge battery in it, and I shot like 1,800 shots in a time lapse, and it was still going. I could easily go 3 days of regular stills and video and not have to change the battery. Whereas with the Sonys, I literally have to carry 3 with me at all times. And running out of batteries has interrupted us so many times that it's like little touches like that that really make a huge difference for people who work in video, for people who have to produce stuff. You can't have your batteries dying on you. Panasonic made, I think, the ultimate video camera, and it's gonna be our new day-to-day camera. I'm sure we'll still use the other cameras sometimes, but for right now, this is the best it gets. I hope this has helped you out. Use our links to buy it, we get a few pennies. Subscribe to see more videos, tutorials, reviews, and give me a like. Thanks so much, bye.